Okay, folks, I'm going to mute everybody again, and we'll kick off for the second half. Right. I've no idea. I've not done this before. I've no idea what's going to happen. If it's an absolute disaster, you'll have to bear with me. So anyway, I'll start sharing my screen, and I'm going to talk about the converting a small garage into a wood turning workshop, which is what basically I had to do. Right, if I can get this to go. Yeah, there we go. So there's the first. There's the garage. It's about 1930, so it's about a 90-year-old building. The main thing to note there is the electric supply, which comes out from our kitchen. So I thought we'd start off by getting a sort of overview of what the objectives were. I wanted to insulate the walls and ceiling to enable occupation throughout the year. Installation of sufficient lighting and power points. Increase storage space by boarding out the pitched roof at the top, and to maximize space by fitting casters to my machinery. So let's kick off. So let's start with an overview of the garage. 90 years old, single brick construction, single skin. You can see there's a door at the window at the opposite end. And then you can get an idea of the size of the project. The total length of the garage is about 17 foot, or just over 5 meters. But my proposed workshop wasn't going to use all of that space. I was going to use it's outlined here in yellow. So it's about 10'6", or just over 3.2 meters in length, and 8 foot wide, which is just under 2.5 meters. There's a cross section showing the height considerations. So the inside of the workshop would be just over 7 foot high. And then here is the arrangement for the joists to support a false floor, chipboard floor, and with a height of about 3.5 feet, or just over 1 meter. And here you can see details, a little bit more detailed of the proposed work. So there's the brick wall of the garage, and then I was going to have foil-backed insulation board, a vapor barrier, polythene sheet vapor barrier to prevent condensation, and then I'm to line the inside of the workshop by 18mm thick orientated strand board, or sterling board as it's sometimes called. Stud work, 45 by 70 millimeter C16 softwood, and then the joists 144 millimeters by 45 millimeters, supporting a chipboard floor, and a plasterboard ceiling for the workshop underneath as well. So this is the view inside the workshop before work commenced. And the first thing I decided to do was to remove the old door and window. The one aspect of this that wasn't DIY was to employ professional window installers to remove the old window and to install the new one. They realized that the old wooden door framework and the window framework were all that were supporting the gable, and they the first thing they did was to install a concrete lintel to continue support of the gable whilst the work was undertaken. The window installation was undertaken. This is a view outside, and again it demonstrates the single brick thickness of the garage wall, except where we had these supporting buttresses. And so this is what I was left with after they had installed the new double glazed window. So then I had the job of filling this gap where the bottom part here, which was originally occupied by the old wooden door. So this is it filled with breeze blocks and mortar. And you see there I've allowed a conduit to feed an external power socket for external use for the lawnmower and other electrical equipment for use in the garden. That's after pebble dashing it to match the rest of the garage, and that's with the electrical sockets fitted. Well, with the pebble dash completed and the window installed, the next phase was the internal stud work shown here. This was going to support the joists and also the internal sheathing for the workshop. So we started off by doing the stud work surrounding the window, which you can see here. This is the timber that was used for the joists and for the stud work. And a detail of the construction. So we used raw plugs to attach the stud work to the brick wall, and these were screwed in place using hexagonal headed screws, which I found to be a really good practical way of attachment. And after the installation of the stud work, we come on to the sheathing of the inside of the workshop, and I decided I'd use 18mm thick orientated strand board or sterling board, which is, I think, in many ways is an ideal lining for inside of a workshop. So the stud work has to be constructed so that it's compatible with the width of the OSB board, which comes in widths of 1.2 meters. So that shows the stud work completed. This SketchUp drawing shows the arrangement of the joists, and you can see how they are supported by the stud work on each wall, each side wall of the workshop, and here you can see the joists completed, and you can see the anti-twist struts and the battens supporting the 4-foot fluorescent light units, 3 of them in 3 pairs. So the joists shown here are resting on the top of the stud work of the walls, and again I used these hexagonal headed screws to attach everything together. These spacers here between the joists were attached to the brick wall, again with the hexagonal headed screws. Here's the joist construction in progress. and you can see the joists being screwed to the spacers, and then the spacers are actually raw plugged to the garage wall itself. And that gave a very firm structure, a very good structure. And these are the anti-twist struts, which are used to stop the joists twisting under load. And you have the fixings for the fluorescent lighting buttons shown here. So the next thing to come was the chipboard flooring and the plasterboard for the ceiling. The plasterboard was not as ordered, it was much larger. Each sheet measuring 2.4 meters by 1.2 meters with 12.5 millimeters thickness, but they were very heavy and difficult for one person to maneuver. So I got round this in part by erecting some temporary joists across the workshop and then manhandling the plasterboard sheets to rest on these and then shoring them up with temporary supporting wood to enable me to screw them to the joists. So here's an overview of the plasterboard. And it all worked according to the design. And this is the view of it completed. And you can see the black dots there are the screws attaching the plasterboard to the joists. And this is after applying jointing compound and sanding. And then it's just a matter of painting, and voila, you have your ceiling. So the next thing was the construction of a new stud partition to front the workshop inside the garage. So that's shown in green on this fly-through drawing, with a doorway. And here it is constructed. It was constructed from 70 times 95 millimeter C16 structural softwood timbers, treated timbers. Next, flooring, chipboard flooring. And there it is fitted. Before we actually got to doing the flooring, we used rock wool insulation and laid that down between the joists. And here you can see the work in progress, actually screwing the 18 millimeter chipboard flooring to the joists. So the next thing after that was the insulation of the walls, in which I used this Celotex. That's easily cut to size with a fine saw, hand saw, and then once it's cut to size, it's just pressed into place. So here's one wall completed. And here we have foil insulation tape to cover the joints between the insulation and the studding, and then the whole is covered with some polythene sheeting, which is called a vapor barrier, and that's just use a stapler just to staple that to the wooden studs. And this again is to prevent problems with condensation. So here's one wall completed with the vapor barrier. And then here's the same wall sheathed with the 18mm thick orientated strand or sterling board. So we'll come on to looking at that now. It's incredibly heavy. So each board measures 2.4, 2.2 times 18mm and weighs 34 kilograms per sheet. This is one way I've found of easily moving the boards, was to use an old skateboard. This is an overview showing how the walls of the workshop were cladded with OSB, the sterling board, 18mm thick, simply screwed to the studwork. And there it is, it's shown completed. Also in this picture, you'll see that I've started to modify the electrics, and you can see double sockets there and the conduit, which actually I'm a great fan of, electrifying a space like this. So let's have a look at the electrics now. This is what the electrics were like originally. There's the original consumer unit there and the feed coming in from the house there. And the existing electrics were very basic. You had one fluorescent light and two tungsten bulbs in holders there. And for the whole workshop, there was just this one plastic socket, one switched plastic socket. So this is my revised plan for the electrics. I consulted a qualified electrician who said he would, if I did it on a DIY basis, he would come and inspect it at the end and give it a certificate if it was up to standard. So you can see we have a new consumer board. Here's the old feed coming in from the house, which I didn't change. It seemed to be quite adequate. And here you see we have a ring main supporting 12 double sockets, which meant that I had a total of 24 sockets within the workshop, and also fed outside to the external power socket, which we saw earlier in the presentation on the outside garage wall. Then there was one lighting circuit, three 4-foot fluorescent light fittings within the workshop, and then two additional fluorescent lights on the top of the new floor, and also in the entrance to the garage, and controlled by one double gang switch. As I said before, I'm a great believer in the use of conduit for the electrification of an area like this. It's very, very easy to do. The conduit is readily available from most DIY sources. One thing should be noted, you don't use conventional twin and earth cable with conduit. you use individual cables, the earth cable, the neutral cable, and the live cable. And you use one size for the lighting, and then a larger size that's appropriate for the power sockets. And using this in conjunction with the conduit makes the wiring very, very straightforward and very easy. So here's work in progress, fitting 2 double sockets underneath the window, and the metal metal sockets are used, easily screwed to the OSB sheathing, and then you have 2 knockouts which then take the fittings for the conduit, and then the conduit is attached again by these screw fittings here. But the conduit not only fits the electrical sockets, metal clad sockets, it also fits the switches, light switches. There are knockouts in the fluorescent light units, so the conduit interfaces with those. And it also interfaces with the consumer unit. And you can get a flexible variant of the conduit, which is useful for areas where it would be difficult to use the fixed elements. So that was the electrical work. Now, the original door, 90-year-old door that we took out at the end of the garage, is a really nice door. So I decided to use that, which you can see on the right here, as the entrance to the setting the partition for the workshop itself. So there you have, that's most of the main construction done. This is a view in from the entrance. You can see the new door fitted there. The original plate glass was replaced by double glazed insulated units. And then you can see the area above the workshop, which I can use for storage. You can see it's been pressed into service. And also note the aluminium angle there, which serves to protect the chipboard flooring edge from getting knocked and abraded. And access to that upper area is using these tully steps, these extendable steps, which is a good way of getting access to that area. Okay, so that's the construction finished. We can now look at how the equipment, the wood turning equipment for the workshop was, and the layout of that. So let's have a look. Let's get a good view of this, an overall view. So that's a view of the flooring. So if we peel that back off in the drawing to reveal the joists and the plasterboard, and then in turn, if we remove the joists, the plasterboard, and then remove the joists, and then the stage is all set for the to look at how we installed the wood turning equipment. First in was the lathe and the grinder, and here you can see them installed with a supporting cast of lots of other equipment. You can see the layout of the lathe there. You've got these covered shelves here where the lathe accessories are kept. And then you've got the board on top here for the tools that are in use for the particular project that you're working on. I've got an intake there for the extractor fan, extractor unit just underneath the grinder here for when you're doing sanding. And then you have the grinder here, you have a grinding jig in use there. So that's that end of the garage. Let's change orientation, change viewpoint to this wall, adjacent wall, and the installation of the bandsaw. So here's the bandsaw. It's a Record BS300 on casters, so it can be moved about. And you can see there's a jig there for slicing logs. Some more jigs there, bandsaw jigs there. You can see how I store my gouges and chisels there for turning, using magnetic strips there. Here's a handy tray for the most frequently used jaws on my chuck, and then there's another rack there for jaws, including small-sized coal jaws, larger coal jaws there, and a Longworth disc there, a Longworth for again for rechucking. And then you've got a little heater there, which is more than adequate for keeping the insulated workshop nice and cozy, even on the coldest days in winter. Change viewpoint again. Let's go to the opposite wall. When installation of a workbench and overlying shelves. And like so. And again, you've got a good view of the grinder here and the associated jigs and maintenance for that there. Whole mass of stuff on the shelves there. Storage in these drawers here beneath the bench. Let's change view again. So we have a carving bench there that actually belonged to my wife's grandmother, and that was a good base for the drill press. And so there you go. You have that you have all that in place on that side of the workshop. So that really is it. One happy wood turner. It's a small workshop. Oh yeah, you can actually see there too the air extraction system, the microclean system there. It's a small workshop, but it's I think I made the best of it. I do make further modifications, but overall I'm one happy turner. So thank you very much for watching.